So in honor of our guest, you did some pull-ups this morning, Mark?
I did. I fell kind of short of 5,000 though.
Well, fell short or like not even close?
I don't know. I wasn't that far off.
You had some for a few?
I probably did about a total of 30 reps or so. Spread out over the course of like 37 sets. Yeah, I just suck at them. But I noticed that for me, if my body weight is even just 5 pounds less, damn, that makes a big difference.
It does.
It makes a huge difference. So, like right now, I'm right about 250. When I'm like 240, it's not bad to do sets of 12 on a pull-up.
Mm-hmm.
But damn, right now it's kind of hard.
Yeah, with my added body weight right now, not that I was ever good at pull-ups, but you know,
were pretty good.
Right? Oh, okay-ish.
Yeah, you were moving around good on pull-ups.
And now it's very bad-ish. Like it's tough, man. Yeah. So even just a little bit of body weight kills me.
Were you as big as you are right now when you did that?
I was heavier. I'm 225 now, so I was 230 when I did the pull-ups. And you're right, it's like you lose 5 pounds, it feels like taking a weight vest off. But the national average is 2, so if you did 30 this morning, you're well above. So.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. I used to mess with the ones where you pull yourself up and try to push yourself away. Holy shit, that's really hard. You ever try those?
Wait, pull yourself up and put like the muscle ups?
Yeah, no, not a muscle up. You pull yourself up, and then on the way down, you push yourself away from the bar.
I think I can do like 1 or 2.
Oh, that'll smoke you out. You're probably pretty good. You used to do weighted pull-ups, right?
Yeah, weighted pull-ups, but like when I do weighted pull-ups, I sometimes do these ones, but I like doing the ones on the inside just because they're easier on my shoulder. I know it's not a good move, but yeah, I do weighted pull-ups.
Dude, that sounds like cheating.
It is cheating.
What's the difference between a pull-up and a chin-up? We need an expert in here.
Well, chin-up, your palms are in.
All right, there we go. We got some clarification.
Pull-up is palms out.
And so you did 5,000. Is it around 5,000 pull-ups in a day?
5,804.
Oh my god!
With a 30-pound pack.
Why'd you stop? Why didn't you do 6,000 at that point? Rhabdo?
I came out there with the goal. I met the goal, and
a 30-pound weight vest.
A back like a pack.
So
I was like,
whose record did you break?
It was a guy. It was a guy named John Bocek, MIT guy. So that was the second time when I actually beat the record. It had been beaten twice since my first attempt. Wow. So the first guy I wanted to beat was David Goggins, had the record 4,030. I failed at that attempt, put me in the hospital, tore my bicep, tore my forearm, rhabdo, the whole 9. Came back a year later. By then it had been beaten twice by a math teacher out of New Jersey.
That's a bunch of bullshit right there, right?
He was like 130 pounds soaking wet.
Oh,
he's a beast, though. He knocked. I mean, he
gotta
did
be weight categories. Something. Yeah. Damn. And then you did it with a weight so. Are the other people doing it with a weighted vest as well, or is that just your own?
That was just my own. Yeah, I failed the first time. I wanted to come back stronger after failure, and just show the world. And you can come back stronger. It doesn't have to be a setback to where And also the weight represented the cause I was doing it for, like veteran mental health issues. So. I want to kind of symbolize that with like the mental burden that they carry.
That's insane. So 260 pounds times 5,800.
Yeah, I'm not a mathematician.
Something like that, right?
Yeah, somebody said it was like something like 4 space shuttles in weight pulling up.
Oh my god.
Jesus.
Wow, there we got some video of it. How do you break?
That was the first time. Yeah.
How do you break a record? Is there somebody watching every rep? Like, how does it work?
Yeah. So the standard was, or the requirement was, you had to have someone counting your reps all the time. So the whole time you're doing pull-ups, someone's counting your reps, and that person had to be certified to know what a pull-up was. So it had to be like a personal trainer, a health person, someone who can recognize what a proper pull-up is and if it's done properly. And basically. They counted every rep, and then they would have to sign a log saying, "Okay, I'm signing off. This new person's taking over." So,
yeah, how many hours did it take?
It took me 22 hours to beat it. The first time I stopped after 17, so I did 3,202 after 17, and I just couldn't. I had holes in my hand. I couldn't pull myself up on that bar anymore.
Explain to people what rhabdo is.
Rhabdomyolysis. So it's a condition where basically. If you're using the same muscle group over and over and over again, your body has to process that muscle breakdown, especially if you're not conditioned enough to do that. We see a lot of rhabdo and people who jump into CrossFit or something like that for the first time. They're not prepared, they're not conditioned. and they go for like max reps. And basically, your kidneys have to process the myoglobin, which is like the muscle breakdown, and it can't process it fast enough, so it gets blocked up, and it causes acute kidney failure. And basically, some of the symptoms are you bloat up, and your urine looks like whiskey, and it's not a pleasant feeling. You know, you just kind of get really fatigued and tired, and your body just starts to shut down.
Did your arms blow up or your lats or anything like that? What?
You just swell up because when your kidneys start going on you, your body swell. You retain more water because you're not processing it, and it's just like you just feel bloated. And you saw the clip. And my face was like probably 2 times the size it was now.
Maybe that's what happened to my face.
Yeah. So
Maybe I was permanent rhabdo.
yeah.
And that 30-pound pack, like, why did you? Because you could have broken it without that on.
Sure.
So if someone wants to break it again, are they supposed to wear a 30-pound pack or?
No, I don't recommend anyone put that pack on. I mean, I did it for because it was important to me. So one thing is, anytime you do something, you got to do it for you, and you got to have a purpose and a cause while you're doing it. If you do it for someone else's reason or someone else's, I mean, it's just not that. It's not as significant, and you might not do it because it's not your purpose. It's not your cause. So for me, it was significant because I had failed the first time at just the body weight, and my mindset was, no failure, only feedback. And I wanted to show people that you can come back from failure stronger than you were. And the best way I could think of to symbolize that newly acquired strength, that rejuvenation, that comeback, was to put a pack on my back.
Yeah.
And I also did it, the cause I did it for was for veteran mental health issues. I was in the service, I was in the Navy for 11 years. I had several friends who took their own life. And I wanted the pack to symbolize the mental burden that some of these people carry with them. Sometimes they never take that pack off. I could put the pack on my back for a day. Some of them never take that pack off. So I wanted to put that message out there, and that's why I wore the pack. Now, if someone else wants to go wear the pack and they want to challenge themselves, more power to them. I encourage everyone to try to, if you want to break the record, go ahead. I will help you. I encourage you to, because if it wasn't for the people who set the bar before me, I would have never broke that record. I would have never been able to push myself further than I thought I could go. Because like I said, that record had been beaten twice since my first attempt. And if it wasn't for the bar setters, the people who weren't afraid to chase after that record, I would never broke it. So.
You said no failure, only feedback. Mm-hmm. I like that a lot. That's great. So you just kind of, some of the shortcomings that you may have had, you take it as more information, learning process.
Absolutely.
To try to get better.
Absolutely. Life is struggle. It's an unavoidable fact. So the only choice you have is how you want to look at it and how you want to respond to it, and that's where the feedback comes from. You could look at failure as a setback or get the lessons from it and the feedback from it. So at any given moment, you have that choice to make. I chose to find feedback and lessons out of it.
You can't really do things that last this long without tapping into some deep, dark spots in your mind, right? I mean, if something that lasts like 20 hours or even like, some people run 100 miles or, like David Goggins runs 100 miles. I mean, you got to really tap in deep and go places you probably haven't had to go before. Is that right?
Some people tap into that dark place. If that's your, if that's what gets you going, that's great. More power to you if it works for you. For me, I don't feel that I don't need to tap into a dark place. I find power from just a great sense of gratitude, a great sense of, love for the cause that I'm doing it for. I find those things to be just as powerful as a dark place. And you know what? You don't need a dark place to go and get after it. You don't need to tap into some messed up things that happened in your past and use that for fuel. I mean, that you could use that too, but it's not the only way. You can tap into good places as well. Family, purpose, meaning in your life. Those things are just as powerful as any dark place you could tap into. And in my case, like, I feel like it's more powerful because that's in more abundance. I mean, if your guiding light in your life is every messed up thing that's happened to you, I don't know. I mean, for me, that's not how I approach these challenges. I come from a place of like gratitude. My body's been through a lot, and I put a lot of miles on my body, and I'm grateful for that. And that's where a lot of my strength comes from. It doesn't come from like a dark place. Yes, dark things have happened to me in the past, but I'm a person, like, I turn my excuses into reasons. So every excuse I have, it's easy for me to go to a dark place. I can go there like for me, that's the easy thing to do. And for me, it's kind of like I can use that dark place as an excuse, but I want to turn it into a reason. I want to, in spite of the bad things that happen, I'm going to do this goal anyway. And I'm not going to tap in it. Like I live now, not in the past. Like what's going to move me forward now is not the past. It's how I am, who I choose to be in the future.
That just made you about 150 times scarier. I went to Jackson Wink, the fighting school down in New Mexico, and I talked to some of the instructors there. And one of the guys, they said, "Hey, this is one of the better jiu-jitsu practitioners in the building, and he works with a lot of the top fighters." And so we talked to him for a little bit, and I was asking him, do you get mad or you get excited, or like, where do you go to in some of these training sessions and some of the tournaments and stuff that you've done? And he's like, I'm really big into role-playing games. And he's like, I love video games and I love comic books. He's like, so I take the two and I mix them together. And he's like, and I just think about that when I'm grappling with somebody. I was like, okay, this is the craziest guy in the building. Other people are smashing their fists against the wall before they fight or something, or getting themselves worked up in some other way. But he had this big old smile on his face when he was talking about it. And I'm like, okay, that's why this is one of the badder guys in the building right there.
Yeah.
How do you realize that that's the way that you can go about things? Because I remember when I started training here at Super Trading, I saw a lot of guys getting mad. So I tried to get mad. Didn't work for me. So I started just concentrating on being calm, and that worked well for me. So for you, did you ever grapple with that idea, or have you always just been that way?
Yeah. I mean, it's always there. I mean, I'm human. So, I have a spectrum. Everyone has a spectrum of emotions. I get mad like anyone else. I get angry like anyone else. I get happy. I get sad. But for me, it's like, how long do we camp out there in that anger? Because it's an emotion. It takes energy to be mad all the time. And that's energy that I would rather use putting toward the actual feat or event itself. If I'm spending time getting worked up, getting mad, I'm burning matches. It's an emotion. It takes a toll on my CNS. It takes a toll on my, parasympathetic system. It's an emotion. So I don't want to spend all that energy getting worked up, getting mad, when I could come from a place that's not anger. I can come from a place of gratitude, which is more calming for me. I go into it in a more relaxed state. I go into the event with acceptance of the worst outcome and the best outcome. And I'm neutral. I go into it with a sense of neutral alertness, where I'm just kind of like, I'm not giving in to either or. I just accept any outcome that could come. I'm not angry. I'm not happy. I'm not glad. I'm just kind of in the moment. I'm present. So.
Maybe that's because of the nature of what you're doing. You're doing these labors for hours and hours on end, days on end. Maybe you can't just be mad every single day that you're going about that.
Yeah, I mean, anger is such a primal emotion, and it's such an easy. For me, it's like, I can get mad. For me, it's an easy way out. It's an easy reservoir to tap into. I want to go deeper than that. Anger is very primitive, So for me, it's like, why am I mad? Let's figure that out first. If I'm tapping into anger, I want to know why I'm mad all the time. I mean, if I'm doing these things for self-discovery, then let's peel back the layers instead of put on this facade of this anger, because it goes far deeper than that always. What does that really mean about me is what I want to know. And when I do these labors, I'm stripping myself. I'm stripping layer by layer by layer. And to be honest, the anger is one of the first layers that goes. I might be mad at the start of it, but it doesn't last long. It's not. You can't stay mad like that and stay in this dark place, because there's a saying by Nietzsche where it's like, be careful when you're, and this isn't word for word, it's something like, be careful when you battle your demons or your monsters, because you might become one yourself, right? Sometimes we focus only on facing on the demons, right? And we channel that, and we lose sight of who we really are, and we take on this persona of this demon and this anger, and it's not, to me, it's not real. It's just a layer. There's far more deeper layers to you than you even know. And once you start stripping away and you're really your true raw self, you're not mad, you're not angry, you are authentically who you are, and it's a beautiful thing to see once you really do that.
Yeah, I used to box and in a lot of other sports and stuff like that. Yeah, you can only be. A lot of times you'll mess up if you're mad, and try throwing a good combination. Try moving your head and throwing a good combination and being smooth. If you're all angry, a lot of times you're angry. You're going to be too tight to really execute. And we see it with lifting sometimes. Sometimes you get so fired up that you miss something on a squat because you're not as technical as you should have been. And we see it all the time. Like lifters tend to kind of like lose themselves. They get so fired up, they get so worked up. What about when you're lifting? You're a big guy, you're in good shape. But what about like are you going for like a heavy deadlift or you going for a heavy bench? Do you get yourself maybe not angry, but you get yourself like amped up, hyped up a little bit, or
Sure,
are you more
yeah.
relaxed?
Sure, I get hyped up, but that's different than being angry.
Yeah.
Like I can be hyped up and extremely focused. Like if you really dial yourself into a lift, you're focused. You're excited. I'm excited. I'm not angry. I'm focused. I'm laser. Everything else is a blur. It's front size focus. All I see is that bar, and all I see is that bar moving up off the ground. And that may project out as looking angry or seeing angry, but in my head is I'm a laser, and the bar is my target. And I'm not gonna miss, and everything else is kind of like a blur. So you can be excited, you can be hyped up, but you don't have to be, like, I'm not thinking back to when I was like 8 years old and I got bullied and like, like that doesn't go to my head. Like it's an easy place to go to. Like I'm not going to go there. Like I'm not going to give that moment in my life the power and credit for why I'm going to get this bar off the ground. I'm not going to give some snotty kid who bullied me when I was like 8 the credit for
Right.
why I'm lifting this weight up because I want to lift this weight up because I'm focused because I choose to be. So
Have you been a driven person even before the military, or was the military a big part of that?
no, I wasn't always just driven. I mean, in high school, I wouldn't say I was driven. I think I was, it took the military. It took a combination of things to kind of instill this in me. One of them was 9/11, right? I was a junior, sophomore, junior high school. I was sophomore in high school. 9/11 happened, and something about seeing 3,000 Americans get murdered on national television puts things into perspective, especially when you're not really have appreciation or taking things too seriously. Smoked a lot of weed and just kind of, was just going through the motions. And then I've quit. I've quit in my life. Like I know what it feels like to quit. I know what it feels like to look in the mirror and see like someone who is a quitter, and it's a bad feeling. And it's like, as a man, I want to be someone that my parents and my dad could be proud of. My dad had to overcome a lot of challenges in his life. And also, I don't have any kids, but one day I want them to look at my legacy and be something they could be proud of. I don't want to see someone who's a quitter. So I know what that feels like. And so that and the discipline that the military gave me, just kind of, and my passion for like fitness, kind of kind of slowly built this person I am today over time.
I think that's something that maybe sometimes people don't always realize is that, willpower, discipline, a lot of these things can be built over time, and it might take a long time. And, I wasn't really like brave or strong as a kid. I barely said 2 words, believe it or not. I actually was super shy. I didn't want to talk if I didn't have to. I never talked to adults, except for my parents. But I was too scared to, So I think a lot of times people don't understand these things can be built up over time. You can make changes, and it might take a long time. It might take 11 years of being in the military to change like that. When 9/11 happened, was it like, you cut to a Rocky montage and you're off to training, or was it a slow progression? What did that look like?
No, it was kind of like, like, what am I doing? Like, most kids that were my age at the time, they were doing what I was doing, like most. And when you talk about what most people do, anytime you say, well, most people do this, when you say most, that's average. Most people are average. Most of anything is average. And I didn't want to be that, because what I saw on TV was a lot of debris, a lot of carnage, a lot of I remember just gray. All the screens were just gray with smoke. People running out. People were jumping out of buildings just to get out, right? But then there were people who were running in. There were the firefighters, the policemen. There were people that when the buildings were coming down and people were dying, people were still running in to go get them. And so I thought like, well, that's who I want to be. Who could I be that person for? When someone feels like everything's crumbling down around them, who's going to go in and get them? Who's going to inspire that person to keep going? And I wanted to be that person for people. And I come from like my family. My mom was in the military. My dad was in the military. And in that moment, I just had a deeper appreciation of like this sense of sacrifice, this sense of discipline, this sense of being the strong person, not being average, not being most. So that's kind of what drove me at a young age. That's kind of what drove me to kind of start getting after it after that. And no excuses after that point.
And you just decide to jump right in the military kind of right then?
Yeah, so I was like I said, I was going in my junior year, and so I was a sophomore, and then I enlisted. I went into what's called a delayed entry program, and as soon as I graduated high school, I was off to boot camp.
What'd you do when you were in the military? Like, what sect did you go to?
Yeah. So I was an air traffic controller.
Okay.
So again, like we talk about focus and having to like really dial yourself in when very little margin for error, and really compartmentalizing and just like focusing on one task and make sure you're doing it right, because if you make a mistake, there's lives that will actually lives are at stake. So that really built into me this idea of you can really dial yourself into something and go into that zone no matter what else is going on in your life, because the reason why you're doing it is bigger than you. It's bigger than you. Whatever I had going on, girl problems I had going on, financial problems, it didn't matter. I had a job to do, and people depended on me to do it. So it's kind of like that discipline is what I'm talking about. It's kind of what built me into doing what I'm doing today.
You're doing a lot of crazy different things. The pull-up record is just one of them. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of these other things that you're doing?
12 Labors Project is the initiative I started when I started doing these, people call it crazy things. I don't see it as crazy, but
Like, don't call me crazy, man. I'm doing it for mental health.
that tickled me. That's a good one. Yeah, so 2014, I was still in the military. I started realizing like, man, like what could I do? How far could I go if I set a purpose that wasn't about me, about myself? If what was it about just personal gains or anything like that? How far could I go if I set the cause beyond my line of sight? So often we do things just for ourselves, and that's not a bad thing. You should always be, self-mastery and all these things are great things, but how much further could I go if I set that line just a little bit farther? And so I did a test. I did a 40K run for children's cancer. Or it was a 50K. It was a 50K. I ran it with a 40-pound vest on, and I crushed myself. I finished it, but I would crush myself. But at that moment, I realized, wow, I did this, and it wasn't about me. And I went further than I ever thought I could go. Okay, how much further could I go? So I set the goal to do 12 increasingly difficult challenges for causes greater than myself. And that's where it kind of put me. So I set the goal for the pull-up record. After that, I failed the first time, came back, beat the record. I flipped a 250-pound tire for 13 miles straight. That's a truck pull. I pulled a 2.5-ton pickup truck across Death Valley. And I climbed the rope for 29,030 feet over 27 hours. And most recently, I ran 100 miles, or I ran 20 miles every single day for 100 days straight. So I've done 6 of these labors so far, and I'm planning my 7th one here shortly. So yeah, that was in May, middle of the summer. 110 degrees.
Which one of these things which one of these things did you get into and you're just like 100 feet into it and you're like, oh shit? Has there been anything like that where you kind of gotten into it and you're like, oh my god?
The rope climb. Yeah, I thought the rope climb is like it's pull-ups. This is like, no, it's not. It's like you're using your whole body to climb up that thing, and it's like so many points of contact when you're doing a rope climb. It was just something that it was like nothing I've ever done.
And these challenges, are they just coming from your head, or are they suggestions, or?
Yeah, they're coming from. So I want to make sure that the event that I'm doing is. So I start with the cause. Like, what do I want to do it for? It's always important to start with a strong why and a strong purpose. If the purpose isn't strong, then when I get to like a moment like this, what initiative, what motivation do I have to keep going when I'm really raw, in my most raw state? This is about 16 hours in. And each step is not, it's me taking each step, but what's really keeping the momentum going is my purpose, is the reason why that's where my head is at. And it's a hard place to get to, but once you get to that moment in the event, you're in it and you're going to finish. No, man, nothing's going to stop you at that point. Nothing was going to stop me at that point. I mean, if I died right there, I would have died right there on that road, and nothing would have stopped me.
So these each event is for something different.
Yes. So like the truck pull, for example, I wanted to raise awareness for veteran suicide. At the time, the statistic was 22 suicides per day, and so I pulled the truck for 1 mile for each suicide per day. So each life lost, each mile. At the end of each mile, I saw a face of an unknown person who felt that death was stronger than their problems. That was their only release at that point, because they were alone, because they felt that no one else was out there. So I chose Death Valley because it symbolized the mind of the afflicted. It's the mind of someone who's going through depression, desolate, lonely, seemingly hopeless. But even in Death Valley, there's life out there. If you look close enough, there's life out there. It's actually thriving with life, and it's never hopeless. And I wanted the truck to symbolize that. Whatever burden you're carrying, no matter how heavy it is, 2.5 tons, you can do it. You can get out of there very much alive, and there's people out there that could help. There's people out there that are willing to. So when I was out there, I had a lady who insisted on being out there. I told her, I said, no, I want to do this alone. I want to put my mind in this solitude place. I don't want anyone out there with me. I don't know what kind of shape you're in. You could fall out there. I'm not going to be in a position. I don't know if I'm going to be able to help you if you fall out. Like, I just want to do this alone. It's dangerous. She showed up anyway. The day of the event, she showed up. And I told her, okay, well, I want you to stay about a quarter mile away from me, a mile away from me the whole time. I don't want to see you. I was really kind of like almost a little rude with her. I was just kind of, but halfway through this, that labor, I hit in the road, there were these ruts in the road. And one time my truck hit the rut, and the worst thing about pulling a truck is losing momentum, especially after you're pulling it for miles and hours. So I couldn't get the momentum going. Like, this thing was stuck. And I remember, like, it felt like a max rep every single time I tried to get this thing going. I was leaning. I almost had a hernia trying to get out of this rut. And I sat down and I was like, I'm gonna have to put this thing in a drive. I'm gonna have to call this event. Like, I can't get it out of this rut. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I had tears in my eyes because I thought I wasn't gonna finish. And I remember looking in the distance, and it looked like a mirage. And I saw her taillights were out there, and it was something about just not being alone out there. Something about just seeing somebody in the distance. It just gave me hope. Like, it gave me this urge, this sense, like, what am I doing? I'm playing the world's smallest violin right now, having this one-man pity, but I need to get this thing moving and get going. I'm not alone out here. And the thing that, like, that's it. When you're going through depression, you push people away. You don't want help. And at that moment, I was still making it about me. No, this is me in this labor. This is me in this physical challenge. But the cause transcends all that. And I saw those taillights, and I got the thing going again.
How did the idea for the labors first off come about? And then along with that, what made you want to have a different kind of cause behind each and every labor? Like, what manifested this whole idea?
Because I wanted to inspire people to chase whatever it is, their own greatness. I believe that everyone is destined to be great at something, whether it's a teacher, whether you're a coach, whether you're a musician. You're destined to be great at something. Not enough people push themselves far enough to know what that really is. They settle for things they're kind of good at and things that get them by. But your true greatness lies beyond what you ever thought you could do. And you got to push your limits. You got to push yourself outside that boundary to figure it out. So I choose different causes that are important to me, but to show just a diversity. Like, it doesn't have to be something physical. It could be any cause that you choose that you deeply connect with. So that's why I do different causes for that. It's really, I want people to know that they can, whatever it is they're choosing to chase, whatever dream or goal, they can dig deep enough and be able to pursue it regardless of what the cause is, because it's unique to you. So.
Are you passionate about mental health? I know you said that you've had, many soldiers that have taken their own lives and friends and things like that. But have you been in these spots yourself? Because you seem to know a lot about it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I went in 2013. I blew my knees out. Right. So I tore my left ACL. I tore my right meniscus. And being someone who had always,
how'd you do that?
I was going through SEAL training. Yeah. So I was running on the beach, and there was like 30 guys in front of me. And on the beach, there was like this divot in the sand. 30 guys in front of me ran down into this exact same divot. I jumped down into that divot, and my knees gave. I don't know why they gave. My knees went one way, body went one way, left ACL, right meniscus at the same time. Had surgery, went through the rehab, couldn't meet the standard. I couldn't keep up to the standard that was that I had to meet after surgery. So I fell into being someone who identified myself by my physicality. That's who I was. I put all my eggs into that basket. I'm a physical person. I'm dominant. And once that was taken away from me, I had nothing. you hear about like in the Great Depression when the stock markets crashed. There were people jumping out of buildings because they were their money. And once you attach yourself to one identity and one idea, you actually weaken yourself, because now if that gets taken away from you, you have nothing. So I fell into a deep, dark depression after that. I didn't want to do anything. I gained a lot of weight. I gained about 40 pounds. Self-medicated with alcohol. I just didn't want to talk to anyone. I isolated myself from my family and friends. I didn't want to work out. Didn't want to do anything. And I think like a lot of people, I just got sick and tired of who I was. Like I didn't want to be that person anymore. I couldn't recognize myself in the mirror. And I was like, well, I need to set a goal. I need to set a goal that's going to get me out of this funk I'm in. My legs are shot. My knees are shot at the moment. What could I do what goal could I set that's going to give me that same drive that I had going through training? It has to be a big goal. So I set the pull-up challenge. I was like, I could use my arms. I'm not completely out of it. My legs are gone, but hey, I don't need my legs to do pull-ups, right? Most people who beat this record, I think other than Goggins, like I don't know if they did leg day training for the pull-up thing. I didn't need my legs to really beat that record. But yeah, so I set the pull-up goal. It gave me a goal. It gave me something to wake up every day and train, get my butt to the gym at least. I could only do 10 pull-ups when I started. And I just set the goal, and 6 months later, I did my first attempt, failed at it. Okay, no failure, just feedback, came back, beat it.
You started at 10 pull-ups?
I could do 10 pull-ups consecutively when I first started, and they were ugly.
And how many could you do consecutively once you got going?
I think going into the pull-up, the first attempt, I could probably do like 35 maybe consecutively. It's not about it was more about recovery between sets. So I would do like 8 on the minute every minute for the first 10 hours, and then I would go 6 on the minute, then 4. As the quality of reps began to diminish, I reduced my number of sets on the minute, reps on the minute.
Did you manage to eat anything during that whole thing? What'd you do?
So liquid calories, liquid carbs. Digestion takes so much blood, and I needed them to go to where they were working the most, and I think that helped me too. It kept me hydrated as much as I could, and it kept me on the bar longer, and I didn't feel bloated and stuff. Or I really wanted a burger. Like during the truck pull, I ate 2 Hawaiian pizzas, in the middle of it. But it was a different kind of effort. It was like a slow grind versus just being on a pull-up bar for 22 hours.
Well, the pineapple helps. Has digestive enzymes in it, so it burns up all the calories, right?
Yeah,
that's the way it works, right?
Yeah,
I'm not a nutritionist or anything.
Yeah.
But.
When you're doing we're going for the pull-up record, are you allowed to use chalk? Are there any things that you can't use as far as try to get better leverages on the bar?
You couldn't use you could use chalk. You could use things like that. There wasn't really. You just had to grip the bar. I mean, the standards is pretty simple. Your chin had to clear the bar. You couldn't have excessive swinging through the lower body, so I couldn't kip. There was a certain my upper body couldn't kip up to get it. Yeah. It had to go from a dead hang to fully top. But I used a lot of chalk. Chalk was my grip. And towards the end of the first challenge, the holes in my hand were so bad that there's a guy his only job was to flush my hands out, flush the chalk out of the holes in my hand, and repack them in with chalk. So for every set, for hours, he would just flush them out, and then with his hands push chalk into these holes in my hands so I can still grip that bar. And I did that for 1,000 pull-ups.
That's disgusting. That must have been a really good friend.
It was a good friend. Austin Helms. His name was Austin Helms. Good guy.
Somebody's got to do it.
If you could, Kip, how many pull-ups could you get there? I'm still going.
I could probably do a lot of kips. I don't know how many pull-ups I could do.
Gotcha. Okay. I like it.
No, I'm just kidding.
Kipping pull-up actually sometimes is hard if you've never done them before.
Sure.
They can be. It takes you got to synchronize yourself into it.
Yeah, movement. It's a new movement pattern, so I guess I could see that technique.
What else has happened to you during some of these things that you've tried?
So, in terms of
13 miles of tire flipping.
Yeah, that one. I would say the most mentally challenged, you talk about mental challenge, was probably this tire flip, because a big reason why I do these events is I want to know what my response is going to be in the face of the unknown, when the unknown factors come into play. You could prepare and prepare and prepare, but unless you throw the unknown in there, you don't know how you're going to respond. So I did this challenge, this 13-mile tire flip, after I failed the first pull-up challenge. So the first pull-up challenge when I went into hospital was in July. This was in December of the same year. So my dad, he passed away the day before I did this tire flip. He died from complications of Parkinson's disease. That's why it's one of the causes that I do these things for. And when he passed, I had a choice to make. There's the unknown. Reporters were asking whether I was going to, somehow they caught wind. Am I still going to do it? Am I going to postpone it? Am I going to cancel it altogether? And sometimes, you know, success in doing things that are really great, you have to go against reason. You have to go against logic. I could have quit. I could have said, I'm going to postpone this a little while. I'm going to grieve. That's what people expected me to do. And I could have got a bunch of people to agree with me. But I would have never known who I was in this moment. Like right here, this is the last 30 feet of this flip. I would have never known the kind of man I was. I would have never been able to test my mettle like that under this precise amount of stress, this unknown factor, if I didn't go forward with it. And I just thought to myself, like, if my dad walked in the room right now, what would he tell me to do? He would say, I want you to live your life with purpose, and I want you to finish what you started. You set the goal, you finish it. He wouldn't want me to quit. And you know, like, so I woke up the next morning. I started at 4 a.m., 4:17 a.m., and I flipped that freaking thing for 13 miles. I did it in 10 hours. You see the tire tread coming off on my pants.
How much
right
does the
there.
tire weigh?
250.
Yeah.
250.
Yeah, we got a 250 one out there. That's far. Freaking 13 miles.
I can't even pick that or push that thing to move it back to back in place.
You know, a funny story about this tire flip was about halfway through, right? So at the halfway mark, I'm on the struggle bus, and this old man like pulls up in a car next to me. Like he goes out of his, because I'm on like this 500-foot paved road. He comes into the road, and he has like a old like Vietnam, or not Vietnam, like it's like an old like a Korean War hat. Like he was like, you know that thing rolls, right? He pulled off just to tell me that, like, you know those things roll, right? And he just drove off. It was surreal. I was just like, what? Okay.
You're like, yeah, maybe if no one's looking, I can roll it for a little while.
Yeah.
You know, with a lot of what you're talking about, you mentioned that whenever you get to a really hard place in some of these labors that you think about why you're doing it. That's why you attach a reason. You know, I think you mentioned, I don't know, in the very first pull-up challenge that you did, was there a difference in the way you went about it that caused you to fail, or I mean, were you just like not prepared for it?
Right. I didn't have a strong enough why. Like I did it again. I did it to pull I was in a funk, right? I was going through, so I did it to prove to myself that I wasn't weak. Like I had to do this physical challenge to show myself that I wasn't this, I still could regain my physicality. I reattached myself to this idea that when it was taken from me before, it put me in that same place. It was like a negative feedback loop. I couldn't let it go. I was like, no, I'm going to show, I got it. I still got it. And it was about me. It was very selfish. And yeah, I had the cause out there on the surface. It made me feel good to do it for a good cause. And I was passionate about the cause. I still am. But if I'm being honest, the deep reason why I did it was to just kind of pull myself out of this thing. I didn't appreciate all the good that I still had going on in my life. I still had my health. I still had a job. I still had, food on the table. I still had a family. I still had friends. I had support, but I didn't want to hear all of that because it was all about me. So when I failed the challenge, right? Because I was underprepared. And there's a lot of things I could blame it on. Like the bar was moving. I had sandbags holding down this mobile bar. So over that many reps, just the shifting of the bar kind of got into my hands, but those are excuses, right? So when I was sitting in the hospital bed, again, world's smallest violin, this kid walks in, and this teenager walks in with a big smile on his face, doesn't knock on the door, just walks up to my bed. He's like, look, I just want to say how inspired I am by what you tried to do. He didn't care that I didn't beat the record. He didn't care how many pull-ups I did. He was just inspired by the attempt, that I would actually do something like that for other people. Come to find out, this kid was awaiting an organ transplant that he needed to live. And I'm like, wow, this kid is like what am I doing? I'm over here making it all about me. And this kid is here with this great attitude. And I realized in that moment that even at my lowest low, even at a rock bottom in my life, I still had a freaking job to do. I could lead. I could motivate this kid, and the words that came out of my mouth was either going to build him up or break him down, regardless of how I felt about my failure itself. So when you're going through a hard time, people are always watching you to see how you respond to it. And you might not know it. It might be from afar. They might be too scared or not have the courage to tell you about it, but they're seeing how you're going to react. And that was so profound, and like it changed my life when that happened. And from then on, I was like, it's not about me anymore. I'm going to do it for kids and others like him who might be going through a hard time, suffering in silence by themselves. And they see someone out there really pushing themselves for a cause that's truly greater than themselves. We'll keep going.
You are lifting a lot of people. Has someone lifted you? You know, when you were down, you said that you kind of set these challenges ahead of you that got you out of the rut. But was mom or dad or somebody, in your corner, a mentor, or someone to say, hey, man, like, you're not being yourself, dude. Like, you're drinking, you gained a bunch of weight. What are you doing?
Yeah. You know, a lot of people, like all my coworkers, they noticed it. You know, I didn't hide it. I didn't hide it at all. And I didn't care at the time. I was just like, leave me alone. My mom, she came to one labor and never came back. She came to the first of the pull-up challenge, and you can see her. She's in that video when I'm in the hospital.
Poor mom.
Her face is just like, never again will I, like, this is insane. Like, I don't want to see my son go through, like, she watched me go through that. So she never came to another labor. She supports me in what I do. She's just, this how moms are, I guess. And then, I have friends and stuff. There's like, you're not being yourself and things like that. But when you're in a state where, again, like, you're battling your ego and you're blind to those things. You don't want to hear it. Like, I'm working it out myself, and that's just all ego. That's all ego. You can't do it alone. You can't do it by yourself.
Yeah, I always urge people that when they see somebody, just start doing stuff out of character, because I've dealt with a lot of losses in my life too, and a lot of it has had to do with mental illness and drugs, combinations of the two. And when someone just start acting out of character, they start acting strange or a little different than normal, check in with them, but don't give them the typical, hey, how's it going? Because they're going to just say, oh, it's good. And don't let them off the hook.
Exactly.
Maybe you might have to do something really hard. You might have to give them an ultimatum or something. You might have to really, if it's a family member, that would be really hard. That'd be hard to do. It'd be hard to say, hey, like, I'm not your brother anymore if you keep being an asshole, right? That would be really hard to do. But if it's a friend, you should tell them, like, dude, I'm here whenever you're ready to make a change, but if you're not changing, I ain't around.
Goes back to just being the one to run in when everyone else is running out. Right. I gave this kid 100 chances. I'm done. I'm done with them. Be the one person to give them 101.
Right.
Do that one extra chance, and really, like you said, don't let them off the hook. And it's hard, especially when it's like another grown man, right? There's like a thin line there. Like you're kind of in their space, but at the same time, it's like you're coming from a good place. But it's like when someone really wants to be left alone, they'll let you know. So yeah, you just gotta keep being there. Keep just be an anchor.
What's the next one you're gonna do? You think you got any plans yet?
7th labor. Yeah, so next month I'm planning. So this will be my 7th labor. I'm gonna take a long break after this labor, because I did
probably say that going into each one. I bet.
Yeah, like after I did.
As soon as this is over, yeah,
this is the last one. No, I did 6 in 3 years. It took a toll on my body. I'm human. My adrenals were shot. It took me a long time to recover from this last one. So I think if I'm going to finish the 12, I need to take some time off and just kind of recover properly. So in July, though, I'm doing another cause for Parkinson's disease research, and I'm basically going to go back to Death Valley. In Death Valley is the lowest point in the country, minus 242 down in Furnace Creek, or Badwater. And I'm going to walk from the lowest point in the country to the highest point in the continental United States, to the top of Mount Whitney. So it's going to be like over 15,000 feet of gain. And I'm going to do it with the 130 pounds of chains on my body. So I'm going to go from about 110 degrees all the way to the top of Mount Whitney with 130 pounds of chains.
How long do you think that's going to take?
4 days, hopefully.
People die from that, don't they? Going from like that low to that high.
People have done it. People have done it. I mean, you could die. You could die walking out of this building.
Yeah. I just mean going from like low altitude to high altitude. It takes a little while for your body to get used to it, right? But at 4 days, maybe enough.
We'll see.
Yeah,
it'll be enough.
Damn. That one's gonna be wild. And then not being
the chains. Well, like I was talking with
too.
David. The chains symbolize again the the burden. You know, someone with Parkinson's, they're trying to hold on to their quality of life, and each day it's a neurodegenerative disease. So each day is chipping away at the things they love to do, and you can't stop it. You can slow it down, but there's no cure for it. You can't stop it.
It's a good analogy because it's not like they're unaware of what's happening to them.
They're aware.
Yeah.
They're aware. Same with the rope climb. Parkinson's, they want to hold on to things that, the things that are most important to them. So I held on to that rope, and again, the chains are the same thing. It closes your body up. It just makes you look like a physical representation of what someone with Parkinson's actually goes through and resembles. We were talking about that earlier.
What is Parkinson's disease?
Parkinson's disease is a neurodegenerative disease that affects the brain and affects your motor skills primarily. So symptoms of Parkinson's disease is you see shaking in the hands, usually to one side. You'll see bradykinesia, which is like very slow movement. Stutter stepping, their voice gets small, their stature gets small, and they slowly it just eats away at your nervous system.
What do they ultimately end up passing from?
Complication. So they ultimately will pass from Parkinson's, whatever condition that you get, like say you get a heart condition or a kidney condition. Parkinson's disease just accelerates. It complicates things.
Yeah.
It speeds it up. It's just a bad thing to have on top of other stuff. So if you've got like high blood pressure, if you've got like diabetes, if you got things like the Parkinson's will just make those things, it'll exasperate those things. Yeah.
What do you do for your nutrition and stuff like that? Getting ready for these events, when you're doing some of these things, because it's got to be excruciating. Do you eat a very particular way or? Right.
So my nutrition going into this challenge is I'm walking for a long time with a lot of weight on me. Right. So I'm keeping my protein high. I'm trying to get as durable as possible. I'm loading my skeleton up, my skeletal structure pretty good. So I'm eating a lot of foods high in vitamin K, calcium, things that are going to make my bone density that much stronger. I'm getting a lot of protein in. I'm getting a lot of carbs, slow carbs, slow digestion carbs. So I'm eating a lot of sweet potatoes. I'm eating a lot of brown rice.
I thought slow digesting carbs were cookies. Damn it.
You can eat them slow, but they don't digest slow.
It's the filling.
I got to reevaluate the plan I wrote out this morning.
The filling and the chocolate chips are slow. It's the other stuff that's fast. That's what checks you up.
Double stuffed too? Is that?
I can't do double stuffed.
Oh.
Double the gains. Double stuff.
Yeah, that's why I am who I am. Like I'm still skinny.
Oh,
so I got to go for the
single
double.
Stuff.
You ask who inspires me.
It's Andrew over there.
I'm trying.
Are you gonna try to lose any type of like weight at all to make it?
No. I don't want to lose weight. I want to stay I want to stay about my size right now. I'm 225. Because of the weight of the chains. Like I need that padding. I need the mass to kind of be that buffer between my joints and stuff like that. Because if I lose any more weight, I won't have the muscle to actually put the force into the ground to actually make it up, because it's 15,000 feet of gain. So I got to be pretty big, and it's not a purely glycolytic. It's not like I'm anaerobic the whole time. It's a slow grind. So my cardio needs to be on point, but I'm not like anaerobic the whole time. It's like a slow grind.
In terms of like exercise you're doing to prepare for this, is there anything you're doing?
A lot of deadlifts, a lot of squats, doing a lot of core work.
Yeah.
Just like a full gamut of things to kind of prepare. Farmer carries and a lot of yoke walks. Yoke walks too. Okay. And I do a lot of long hikes with loaded packs. So I'm about 100 pounds now, working up and down mountains with packs on and stuff like that.
You just mix things up a lot. Like when you do a yoke walk, maybe you'll do a real heavy one for a short distance. Maybe otherwise you'll do a longer one, stuff like that.
So my yoke workouts I don't do too much. It's like a yoke workout. So I don't want to, I'm already loading myself up, and I don't superset it with anything. I just go for volume for the yoke walk. And then that's usually just the workout for the day, is like a yoke style workout. I don't go like yoke walk to do like plyometrics or go into like anything like that. No, I want my
cool like name for an exercise.
Yoke walk.
Yeah. That's got to be the best. That's got to be the best name for any exercise. And like the dumbest has got to be a good morning, because they hurt so bad, and it's nothing good about it.
Anything with a safety squat bar.
Yeah, that's a terrible name too.
It's the worst.
The safety squat bar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard.
It's like
it really
doesn't feel safe.
Like we get it by looking at it. We don't have to call it that.
Yeah. It's trying to
everything about that says safety. You don't have to call it a safety bar.
anything else in your training that would be maybe quite a bit different than people might expect with any of these things that you've done?
Yeah, I try not to reinvent the wheel. Like pull-ups, I did a lot of pull-ups for volume. I train smart. I listen to my body. I recover. I don't if the quality of reps start to go down, I readjust. I'm always changing my program because if my quality of reps start to go down, I need to readjust. I don't stick to it because I wrote it down on a piece of paper. And then I have to listen to my body, what my recovery is looking like. These events aren't 1 hour or 2 hours. They go for days sometimes. So I got to make sure that I'm staying in that zone, that good recovery zone, to where the quality and it's high concept, low tech is the way I look at it. Like I do really well at the simple things. The mundane things that people just they'll say it's boring, right? Like a powerlifting program is pretty boring, right? You're doing the same shit over and over. I'm doing the same thing. Like I'm doing pretty basic stuff. I'm just consistent with it, and I change it depending on how my body is adapting and feeling. So if you looked at my program on paper, like, oh, there's nothing special about this, but it's the consistency in it, and it's the volume in it, and it's kind of like just how I personally recover to the load.
Yeah. There's actually an article called "Boring but Big."
Okay.
It's on T Nation. It was a really popular article years ago, and it's just what you're saying. It's just quality reps. Like just get in reps that look like they would count in some sort of competition.
Training is hard, and people try to find like different things to do, like to find some shortcut to get in there. But it's really just boring but big.
Isn't that Wendler?
It may have been written by Jim Wendler. I'm not
Yeah, I
sure.
remember I did that back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
5 through 1.
Yeah, that was the beginning stages.
Boring as
of
it
his-
gets.
Yeah, that was the beginning stages of his 5-3-1 stuff, and one of the main principles is in there is for you to have fun. Like he repeatedly talks about how he wants you to have fun, but his version of fun is to be successful, and so he doesn't want you to miss reps. He wants you to have, as you just mentioned, good quality reps. I'm not sure why that is so hard for everybody to understand.
Ego.
They just get so excited. They just want to throw more weight on there every time.
Ego is the killer.
I mean, we've had this gym for 12 years, and the strongest people that have ever been here, they never miss reps. Maybe you shouldn't say never, but I can probably count on the 2 hands that I have out of the 12 years. I can go back and recall a few missed lifts from some of the best, like the best squatter that we ever had here. He squatted 1140. I've seen him. I never saw him miss a squat. The best Stan Efforting's the best lifter we've ever had here. I saw him miss 1 bench press the whole time he was here. And the list goes on. I mean, it's just. And then when I try to tell people that in seminars, they're like they're not understanding. They're not getting it. I rarely miss a lift. If I miss a lift. If I was to miss something, it would be because I was doing really high reps and I wanted to do 25 reps and something just went funky on, rep number 23 and I didn't make it for whatever reason, That would be kind of the only case.
Yeah, I think the only time I've ever seen you, quote, miss something, it was not even because you missed it. You maybe were going to go for a double and you're like, this doesn't feel right. I'm going to call it there.
Right.
Other than that, I don't think I've ever seen you miss.
Yeah, because the quality of rep probably wasn't good. And I was probably like,
Yeah.
That wasn't great. It's going to probably be worse
Yeah.
if I try another one.
Yeah. Exactly.
But what about there's some novice lifters that say you should be scared of the weight or whatever, so you got to push really hard. But is it just because you need to learn your limit, or?
I think there's definitely a learning curve that happens. Like if you're on a program and there's a bunch of different exercises in there that you've never done before, you might go from a quarter and then put a plate on there, and you might screw up lifting with a plate because you're like, oh my God, that smashed me. I had no idea it was going to happen. But after a few weeks of doing a floor press or an incline barbell press, or after a little bit of time, then you have some previous knowledge of what you lifted. And hopefully if you're newer, you're keeping some sort of record. You should write some stuff down. Just again, so you're not kind of falling into these pitfalls. But I think a lot of times people are associating the amount of weight that they are going to put on the bar. It's pre-selected for them by just the simple fact that we have 45s and 25s, which that's a huge mistake. We also have 10s, we also have 5s, and we also have 2.5s that you could very easily use. So that's usually what I see happening. How about you guys?
I see the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I had a guy, I was training and I put some 5s and 10s on there. He's like, "Oh, that looks cute. That looks cute." I'm like, "All right, let's go. Set a 5." And, He struggled, couldn't get it up. I was like, it was cute though, right? Yeah. So egos are definitely a big killer for progress. When it comes to that, people go off of what they see, what they look on what the bar looks like, and they feel like if they're not lifting what everyone else is lifting, then they're not lifting hard enough, and it's just the wrong way to go about training.
Yeah. On the subject, you said you were training a guy. The first time I heard about you was from the Joe Rogan Experience. I heard Colin O'Brady, and he's like, yeah, my trainer is this guy who pulled a truck across Death Valley. I was like, who the fuck is that? So, like, the question I have is, like, what do you do outside of the labors? Do you work with people like Colin who you trained to go across Antarctica? Or, like, what is it that you do?
Right. So I train triathletes, right? I have a couple group training. So I train, like, high-level triathletes. I train a group of Parkinson's disease patients, non-contact boxing. And outside of that, I train guys like Colin. So guys who are kind of doing things that are kind of pushing the limits, right? Got to think outside the box, got to make it's specificity. So it's hard to think of exercises to do that are very specific to doing crazy stuff like walk across Antarctica. Yeah. You got to get creative. I train fighters, boxers, MMA guys. Something to kind of stimulate. The research shows that if you can, fine motor skills and cognitive stimulation under high intensity, so you get their heart rate jacked up, then you make them focus on the details. Fine motor skills. I make them stack pennies. 50 kettlebells. Okay, now stack these sets of pennies, right? Oh, matter of fact, do it in a plank. Put your hands in ice or put your feet in ice and then, stack the pennies. Things like that to kind of give them multiple simulation, a lot of unknown variables, and have them to still remain that focus and not get tunnel vision when it matters most. So when you're cold, when your hands are cold, your fine motor skills go, your cognitive function goes. You can train that though. You can delay the onset of that fatigue, that cognitive fatigue, and you can delay the onset of that fine motor diminishment through training, high intensity bouts, high intensity efforts coupled with cognitive tasks and fine motor skills. So that's what I did for Colin. And with the fighters, I do the same thing. You're gas. You're in round 3 or 5. You're gas. You get that tunnel vision. No, we can train that. We can train those motor skills and that cognitive function to stay sharp and keep your peripheral wide during those moments. It's hard work. It's a lot of unknown variables in that, but that's what a fight is. That's what an unknown environment is, like Antarctica. You're gonna be hit with that stuff, and you have to be able to respond to it because there's little room for error in Antarctica, and there's little room for error in a fight.
For your stacking pennies in between exercises, you said you'd have them kind of in a plank position, right?
Yeah, sure. So I get the heart rate up, boom, get into that plank, and then I'll have them either stack washers on a really thin, like a toothpick, or I'll have them stack pennies. So they're having to focus, right, on stacking pennies, fine motor skills to get it on the washer after they just got smoked doing, some high intensity work.
So would that maybe help a fighter if they're in the 3rd round or they're in the 5th round of a championship fight? Would that maybe help them to maybe try to calm themselves down and listen to their coach type of thing? Or what do you think it's helping with specifically?
Being able to bring your heart rate back down while maintaining focus and work on the fine motor. So
whatever it is
they're working on their breathing. So as soon as they're done with that bout, alligator breathing, belly breaths, they're calming themselves down, they're stacking the pennies, they're focusing on what matters most, and it helps you trim the fat. When you get rocked or you're really getting gas, your mind is going like, what's happening right now? Like, am I fit? Yeah. What is my strategy? What's going on? No, you focus on what matters most when it counts. So either what your coach told you or your game plan that you set out, but you can't get tunnel vision and you can't shut down. You got to be able to do the small things. Your accuracy goes to shit when you're gassed. I mean, you can drill punches and strikes all day, but if you're really gassed, your accuracy, because of your cognitive function and the tunnel vision, it's going to go away. You can train that, though.
Hit some burpees and hit a free throw. Oof. Right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'd imagine that.
Steph Curry, come holler at me.
Yeah, he needs a little boost and help right now.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, in a corporate setting, like if you were to train like an office or something, I think doing stuff like that would be huge.
Yeah. That would be the one and last time that they bring me back if I did what I did in college.
Right, yeah. No, but I was just thinking,
that was great.
I was just thinking, like,
never come back here.
Whether it be team building or whatever,
yeah,
but
exactly.
like if we did it here, I mean, I think everyone just got upset at me that I said that. But like, yeah, like doing some kettlebell swings and then, I don't know, some kind of small minor thing. I think it would really help. Yeah.
It's good. It actually is good for team building because you know, when you do stuff as a team and you really smoke a team, everyone gets tunnel vision and they forget about the team. And if you can just make it about the team and not about you, that tunnel vision goes away.
You know what's also amazing when you do stuff like that is you get to see there'll be someone in the group, because it's not just strength or muscle related. There'll be someone in the group where you go, holy shit, I didn't know they had that in them. And it'll be somebody you totally didn't expect.
Yeah.
But they're whooping some ass, you know.
Or it would be the opposite. It'd be like, holy
Right.
shit, like this guy's the one that quit. Like,
Right, yeah.
like,
yeah.
I would have thought he was
Yeah.
the strongest one. Like, you really learn about a lot about people. It's a
Absolutely.
good thing. It's a
Yeah,
good thing.
putting my hands or feet in an ice bucket, like I probably won't do so great. I'll try anything.
It'd be fun.
Yeah,
It'd be
that,
fun.
that happens a lot with like buds training, right? Like you look around and you see like the most jacked dude, and he's like real cocky, but
they're
then,
out of there.
Yeah,
They're gone. Yeah.
that's weird how that happens, right?
Well, you know, you get a guy who's been, you know, gifted and talented their whole life, never really had to work to make the team, made varsity their whole high school. You put them and you test them, and you take them out of their comfort zone. Now they're doing something. There's a lot of unknown variables. Their mind goes first.
Mom and dad aren't there.
Mom and dad on there, coaches and out there giving them a pat on the butt. And yeah, they say, I don't want none of this. I'm not good at this. And they go. First time they've never been good at good at something. So they
I
quit.
hear a lot of kids say that. I think I hear it more now than I ever have in my life.
What's that?
A lot of kids saying they're not good at stuff.
Oh.
I'm like, well, you just tried it 5 seconds ago.
It's not that you're not good. It's just that someone's better than you right now.
Right.
There's a difference between being not good at something and someone else just being better than you. You could still be good and have someone be better than you. So I think it's the language that these coaches are telling the kids, or the parents might be telling the kids. It's like, no, you're not good. You just need to train harder so that you're at this next level.
You see it a lot in sports like baseball, where you can start playing baseball super young, and then there's just this really huge separation that starts happening as a couple kids, are going through puberty, and other kids aren't, and then the kids are like, "Oh, I'm not nearly as good as I thought," and then they just stop.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, like you put in a lot of time and effort into it. You could probably be pretty good if you stick it out.
Goes back to letting people off the hook. Hey, just try a different sport then. Find a sport that you're good at. Like, okay.
When you work with some of these athletes that obviously, like, Colin and these other triathletes, you mentioned that your work in air traffic control helped you build, a baseline of focus, right? Is there anything else that you do nowadays, or that you teach people to do outside of their exercises that helps them build their focus for what they do?
Right. So focus, that's a good question. Focus is like, the way I see focus is that's your razor's edge of performance. So focus is a straight line. It's here, it's now. It moves with you from second to second to second. It's fluid. Focus is fluid. Now there's fixations and distractions. There's a million things that will pull you away from that line. Relationships, your job, the email, social media, your relationship with coworkers, your relationships with people outside, a million things. And by the way, your brain operates at about 1/10 of a second. These things show up before the alarm clock goes off in the morning. You wake up in the morning, boom, distractions, fixations. So what I tell people to do is write it down. Write down all your distractions, write down all these things that you're fixated on, and start to say, can I let this go for 1 second? Can I let the emails go for 1 second? Can I let the social media BS go for 1 second? Can I let what my mom or my parents are barking at me about for 1 second, just to stay focused in the now? And all successes is just stringing those seconds along together. If you can let it go for a second, you can let it go for 10, you can let it go for a minute till you get done what needs to be done when you need to do it. And that's focus. Focus is clarity, and concentration is when they converge. And it's hard to do because there's so many things that pull us away from focus these days. And people just say, well, you just need to focus more. Well, what the hell is focus? That's focus. Focus is your razor's edge. Focus is now. So write down the things that are most distracting you and just start erasing them one by one. Erase them one by one. That's what I tell people to do.
Makes a lot of sense with what you do, like with all the labors that you do, especially when I can't imagine it, but when you're, hour 20 in into something that you're doing and you have to just take that next step, I imagine that that's what you're doing at that moment, because you feel so broken,
I'm stepping on pepperoni slices at that point. I'm thinking pizza, man.
So is pizza your jam then? You brought it up twice now.
Are you trying to say he's fat?
Nope, just curious.
That's kind of rude.
I'm not going to tell somebody that can easily kick my ass at 30.
All right, between you and me only, yes.
Okay, good.
It'll be our little secret here
Yeah,
on the.
I won't tell nobody else.
Pizza's my
Good
jam.
thing this isn't live.
Gummy bears and dark beer too are my jam. That's my that's my post labor. Usually gummy bears and dark beer.
Nice.
It's a good combination.
Beers and dark beer.
Post workout.
Yeah, it's good for you. It cleans your blood and it's high in antioxidants.
There's a study somewhere that shows that.
Yeah, it's good. So drink up.
Yeah.
Yeah, your body has to deal with the alcohol first because it's like a poison, but then all the carbohydrates come shuttling back in behind it. There's definitely some sign. We got to research this a little further. Andrew, put that in the notes.
All right, I'll call Joel Green. He'll figure it out.
Yeah, he'll have some answers for us. I think a lot of times concentration, is the ability to, like you're saying, block out the distractions. So I think that's great that you're teaching people that because. Yeah, I don't think people have a clear idea of what concentration is. Like, oh, I'm just going to focus in on this thing more. And yeah, that might work for a little bit, but you're going to go bink and you get distracted again.
Multitasking is a killer of focus. You can't multitask and focus and be purely focused at the same time. You focus on one thing and you get it done. You set your laser, you set your target, you knock it out. Boom. What's next? What's next? What's next? Because if 20, all right, let's say focus is that line. And 25% of my focus is on the future, right? Or it's on the past. It's something I was stuck in traffic earlier today. And then 25% of my focus is on how bad the rest of the day is going to go because I'm already late and so what's left for me now? What percent is left for me right now? 50%. And I don't think any coach in the world has taught you to half-ass anything. But yet we half-ass focus all the time because we're fixated on things either that may or may not happen in the future or things that have already happened that we have no control of any longer. So trim the fat, focus on now. What could I do now that's going to keep me moving forward?
How do you teach people to go through this pain? Is there inner dialogue that you try to teach some people? I know some of the people that are coming to you probably, already have a strong mindset, but like we can all have a stronger mindset. And then also, is there outer dialogue that you give them if you're working with them in person, or are there things that you foresee maybe a challenge when they're doing something and you say, hey, like you're going to, when it comes to this point, you're going to have to, do you have kind of like words of wisdom to kind of kick to them? And what do you teach them about inner and outer dialogue?
All right. Well, the biggest barrier that I get, especially with high level athletes who are competing at the very top level, is they tell me what it's called like secret, their secret goal. Everyone has a goal, but everyone also has like a secret goal. So they'll come to me and like, yeah, I'm doing this Ironman. I want to finish top, I want to finish with the pack. I just want to finish the Ironman. That's my goal. But their secret goal is like, if I don't finish in the top 5%, I'm going to be crushed, right? I'm going to be destroyed. And they're going to take that. If they don't finish in the top 5%, they're going to take those feelings of, they're not going to be satisfied if they just finish. And they're going to take that into the next race. So I'm going to say, okay, well, now what's your real goal here? Is it really just to finish with the pack? Let's unpack that a little bit. Is it to finish a very specific goal? And what happens is they're scared to say that because either they don't have the time commitment to train for that top 5%, or they have some fears about not being able to perform. A lot of other so now we have something to work with. Now I'm like, okay, so you have some fears, you have some time commitment issues. Let's attack those and make this secret goal your actual goal, and let's find a real way to get to it. But it takes a lot. You got to dig deep into someone to get to what those limiting beliefs are. Everyone has limiting beliefs, and for me, it's like with working with these athletes, it's like I want to know what those limiting beliefs are. Okay, you feel like you're not good enough. What does that really mean? Who told you that? Okay, did your coach tell you that? Did your mom tell you that? No. Okay, who told? Oh, you told yourself that. Oh, why'd you tell yourself that? Oh, you made it up. Okay. Like you got to just unpack layers, and it's hard. It's a process to do that with people. So I'm packing a lot of luggage to kind of get to the limiting beliefs. Then we destroy that limiting belief. So then when they come back to the surface, they come back stronger and more determined and focused than ever. And those limiting beliefs aren't pulling them away from their focus anymore.
You feel like some people may think they're not deserving of something.
I'm not worthy is a big one that comes up. When I say I gotta have them write it down, and what'll always have, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I don't deserve it, I'm not good enough, like I'm not this, I'm not that. Those are and it okay. Well, what's underneath all that? It's like sometimes they'll say it's like, I don't have time. Okay, let's go deeper, and it'll always narrow down to like I'm not worthy. I'm not low. Like it'll get pretty deep. So we need to find the
You can
root.
break it down and try to make it make more sense, and you can say, hey, do you honestly think the guy that won last year was really, so is that guy actually really better than you? Like, you think that guy was born with like more gifts or more talented, or you think he just wanted it more?
Or you think he was just better that hour, that second,
Yeah.
that day.
Right.
So the main reason you do this is like, because like Mark, he was asking like helping them get through the pain, and you believe that helping an individual get to the deepest why of why they're doing something is going to be the thing that helps them get through the painful periods of what they're going to be doing.
Yeah, well, pain is a symptom of the effort that you give.
Yeah.
Pain is directly correlated with the effort that you're giving. Pain is never the focus. So I don't teach people how to endure, how to suffer more, because that's not the focus. It's just the symptom, right? So if you're climbing a mountain, the focus shouldn't be on the pain of each step. If that's your focus, then you shouldn't have started the climb to begin with, because you weren't ready. If that's your focus, the focus is the journey as a whole. Why are you doing this? So if you're focused, I'm doing this because I want to go through pain. I want to suffer. I want to do. Okay, if that's your focus, I don't see the growth in that. If that's the focus, it's a symptom. It's going to be there regardless. The first of Buddha's four noble truths is life is suffering. That's a given. So why are you making something that's a given your baseline?
And if you really want to suffer, just don't train for it.
Exactly. And by the way, if you don't train for it, you're going to suffer anyway, because you're going to suffer the pain of regret. Right. So there's always a consequence for either. The way I approach it is always have a bias towards action. If given a choice between to do nothing or to take action towards something, whether you were scared, whether you're not, have a bias towards action, because people regret things that they didn't do, not things that they did. Like they regret more things that they didn't do. So for me, it's like pain is. It's obvious. Like I do these events, pain isn't obvious. It's a given. Let's not focus on that.
Yeah.
Let's focus on why I did it. What would compel someone to go through that type of suffering? What's the cause? That's your why. It's the meaning behind the suffering. Not enough people know why they're suffering. Who are you willing to suffer for? I carry these loads for miles, right? Whose load are you willing to carry? And by the way, who's carried your load for years? Who's carried your burden? Who have you put a burden on? Why have you done? Like, those are questions you got to ask yourself, and behind those questions is why, is the purpose, right?
I can see why. I remember when we were in the break room, you mentioned like the labors that you do, and I was like, oh, that sounds like suffering. And you said you could look at it that way. And there was a long pause, and now I can see exactly why you said that.
Perspective.
That makes perspective. Yeah.
I like what you're saying about this bias towards action, because I think we have a tendency to think that, when we mess up, we have a tendency to think, oh man, okay, shit, this slides downhill. Cheated on my diet, might as well keep going. And but the reverse is true too. You can get, like you're saying with this truck pull. Once the truck stops, the inertia to try to get that thing to move again is really, really difficult. But with movement, it continues to move. It continues to build upon itself. What I tend to share with people very often is the more that you do, the more that you can handle. Do more, be more, the more that you have the opportunity to become. And so when somebody's, sitting on the couch and they're kind of contemplating, should I or shouldn't I? You should. Just go. Just go. Whatever that is that you were going to do, whatever that thing was that you keep talking about, just figure out a way to make it happen. And even if it's a half-assed version of you trying something for the first time, at least it's something. Yeah. At least it's a step towards the right direction.
At least it's something you can get feedback from to get better. I mean, it gives you something, like you said. And it's like people, a lot of times they ask yourself, well, I'm not ready to do it. I'm not ready to do this. This is a big goal. I'm not ready. That's the wrong question. Ask yourself are you willing? Because if you're willing to do it, then it'll fall into place. Because you're never going to be ready for, the setbacks, the failures, the people that are going to just walk away from you. You're not going to be ready for the disappointments. You're not going to be ready for the early mornings, the late nights. You're not going to ever be ready for that fully. But if you're willing to go through that, because will is stronger than readiness. I'd rather be a willing person than to think that I'm ready. So, you could be ready and still fail. But if you're willing, that's going to, if you're willing, you fall on your back because you can get back up. So I'd rather be willing. So ask yourself if you're willing to take on the challenge, that you're willing to go into this fight knowing that it's possible that you could fail, but at least I'm willing to do it. So
You know, that makes me wonder, like with all these labors that you're doing, right? I mean, you said that people have done it before. I just can't imagine how you could even really know if you're ready for such a task, no matter how much training you do.
You don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I know that I'm willing to do what it takes to get it done. But I mean, I failed at the pull-up challenge. Like I wasn't ready for that kind of failure. But I'm very willing to do these things. So I think that's what sets the difference.
Where do you think that came from? Where do you think that came from?
I think my parents instilled a lot of this in me. I think my mom she's a hard charger. My mom didn't. She's your traditional like dragon mom. Like my mom's Filipino. She's like first generation, so she didn't take any excuses for me, and it was So she kind of let me know, like, you know, no excuses. You're gonna get it done. And so it's kind of like the mindset I had. My dad was a little bit more easygoing, you know, big guy, strong guy, but just kind of just took things, you know, easy. So.
Man, that looks hard to flip that log over like that.
So this was training. I was training for the truck pull. A lot of these beach. So one thing with these labors is, like, for the truck pull, I didn't pull a truck until about maybe like a month out. Like I pulled a truck maybe 2 times in training. I dragged water-laden logs up and down the Oregon coast and up mountains to train, because my philosophy is like, if I'm stronger than my environment, there's nothing that I can't do. If I can beat my environment, if I can beat all these external factors. So I put myself out there. I had these logs, I had stones up and down mountains, and I really wanted to master my environment, to master my internal environment. So same thing with the rope climb. It's like, there's my dad right there. That was the last like picture that I took with him. I didn't take many pictures with my dad. That's a bit of the tire flip. So yeah, so master your environment is one thing that I really like. If you're scared, like if you're going to box someone, if you're in a fight, I don't want to see that person every single day. I'm going to war with the rope or the tire or the truck. I don't want to be around it every single day. I want to train. And it helped me find creative ways to still train for it, and not actually do the thing that I was going to go to war with whenever I did it, the labor.
Do you have like your own gym, or you got a spot where you train people out of, or you train people, you know, because some of that stuff was like on the beach, like?
Yeah. So before I moved to Portland, when I was still in the service, I trained outside a lot of times. I trained at a gym called North End Fitness in Oak Harbor for some of my accessory work, but most of it was outside. I got out there cold, wet, rainy. In Portland, I trained out of a gym called Evolution Healthcare and Fitness. They're like a comprehensive fitness facility. They have an altitude room, which really helped me. I was able to like simulate altitude up to 21,000 feet.
Cool.
Kind of helped my conditioning. I trained Colin in that room too. So I train and coach out of there as well. So it's a good little spot in Portland.
You ever done a powerlifting meet or anything like that?
I never did a powerlifting competition. I'd be interested in.
You ever get into bodybuilding? Like maybe not even bodybuilding show, but did you bodybuild? Like a lot of us started with some sort of bodybuilding type stuff.
I started with bodybuilding stuff. Curls for the girls.
That's right.
Yeah.
So in terms of like the type of people you're going to be training, is there because obviously you train guys like Colin, triathletes, but are there other types of athletes that you have been able to train that you want to train, or you're working with everyone at this point?
I work with a lot of variations, it's a spectrum. I train high level, like I train a lot of rugby players, football players, collegiate, high school level, just a large variety of athletes, fighters, boxers, triathletes, ultra marathoners. Because for me, my philosophy is like the foundation is strength. And you get any athlete strong, their performance is gonna go up. Then you get specific. Then you start tailoring. So I mean, the formula is really simple. I think it's the mindset and the setting of the goals that really is.
Oh, he's holding the plate.
Yeah, this is Braden Veery. He's one of my high school guys. We just had a camp, a recruiting camp.
It's like a big kid.
Yeah. Outside line. He wants to play outside line. We just had a camp in University of Montana a couple days ago. We were out there. And Jacob Smith is this other kid who went to a camp at Notre Dame. So this is some of the movements. I love that trap bar.
Yeah, trap bars are great.
Waking up hip flexors here. Yeah.
What are with your training? Like what are some things that you might do in a normal training session? Like what does it look like when you're? Obviously, it would matter kind of who you're working with, but you kind of just threw out your philosophy of like just making them stronger. It's going to help a lot. So, what do you normally do with people?
So we set goals. First thing we do is we take about 2 hours of just setting some hardcore goal. Like the limiting beliefs, like that's a session. And after that, you feel like you went through like a 2-hour workout mentally. So once we have the goals set, basically, we make them strong. So I make I think strength is the natural human condition to be strong. So if you get stronger, and by strong I mean barbells. Like I get them under barbell, squat, deadlift, bench press, standing press, and then from there we get their strength to a certain level, and then we get specific. We start adding in the variables. Then we train power, depending on what their sport is. No one can ever any athlete can gain from being able to put more force in the ground. And any athlete can gain from, like, here we go, we're more specific here. This is a boxer. This is Chad McKinney. He's getting ready to fight in a couple weeks in California, or I'm in California. So yeah, down in the Globe Theater in Los Angeles.
Cool.
Getting ready to fight. Yeah, there's a couple boxers. So yeah, then we get specific, and then throughout the whole process I put the volume up front, the volume work up front. Then we get specific and you train, you study often, you test seldomly. So I put all the basics, the volume up front. Then I throw in the hard stuff, the intervals, but very seldomly, because I crush you, but I don't crush you a whole lot. I don't test you every single day. I give you time to study for the test. And the studying is the basics. So a lot of it, what you don't see here, is my Parkinson's class. This guy, animals, they're so focused, such a good attitude.
Andrew Nico works with a group like that as well, right?
Yeah, he previously was. He's no longer doing it, but he was doing that, and he was very passionate about it.
Yeah, a friend of ours was doing that for a few years.
Yep, good group of guys. So yeah, so put the volume up front, then you test seldomly, because I don't want to smoke. I don't smoke you every single session. I mean, a lot of these trainers, they want to. If you're not smoked, then you didn't work hard. No. You're avoiding the truth, and the truth is, like, lifting heavy and getting on a bar. It's hard work. It's not really glamorous. It's boring, but you got to do that stuff to build. You got to build your strength up, and then towards the end, once we establish an aerobic base, I throw in the tests, and the tests are soul crushing, but I don't do them often. But you learn so much about yourself. Like this test I did with Colin, I got a couple videos up there of Colin with the ice buckets and stuff like that. If you go further down, but those things, I didn't train him like that every single day. I did the basics first, and then, okay, let's apply it to some specific stuff. Let's get creative and see how you transfer.
So a lot of it's, the way that you've been training should have
there you go,
led
with
you
the ice, yep.
should have led you to handle this progression, right?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, pretty much. Actually, it's not that one. I think it's further down, the actual one that I trained with them.
Did you ever make the mistake that most trainers make of just like crushing people every single session?
When I I've been doing this for about 11, 12 years, but when I first started, I thought that's what you had to do. Like, I crushed people, and it just wasn't, they weren't getting the results. They weren't coming back. And, yeah, it's higher. It's up more than that. It's a couple of videos up, but yeah, so I used to crush people. I mean, it's a common question I get, like, do you crush people? People think I crush people all the time. No, that's just what you see. There's a lot of boring, mundane stuff that goes around in the background, but
it would also just depend too, right? Like, if it was somebody that just wanted to kind of get a taste of how hard they should be going, then you might give them a good dose of it, right? To say, hey, this is kind of what it looks like. I'm not going to annihilate you today, but we're gonna get a little close, so you can see and feel it. Maybe it's somebody that doesn't train with you all the time.
Yeah. Well, I have some basic assessments, like a very bottom line standard. If they can't meet that standard, if they're struggling, then we got some work to do. But it's never with the intent to crush them.
Right.
They're just not meeting the minimum standard of where they should be
Right.
for their sport or whatever they're doing. They might feel crushed, but it wasn't my intent to crush them. It's never my intent to crush you. Well, actually, it is. If I'm testing you down the line, then yeah, I do want to, because you got to know how you're going to respond when you're getting crushed.
Do you do some of the workouts with people sometimes, get them fired up?
Sometimes if I'm having fun, but I mean, the athletes I coach, like, I'm looking for stuff. Like,
Right, I see.
I'm looking for everything. So, like, if I'm working out with them, I might miss something that could be detrimental if I don't correct it now. So I'm not one of those coaches who work out with them. They're welcome to work out with me when I work out by myself. That's on them. But I wouldn't recommend doing it while they're training up for an event.
Right. Yeah. And then your Parkinson's group, it looked like they were doing some of the same exercises that some of the other group was doing. It looks like they were boxing and moving around kettlebells and things like that, right?
A lot of the fine motor stuff and the cognitive stuff I get from the Parkinson's class because it helps them. So if it can help someone with a neurodegenerative disease, then it'll help you with the normal brain chemistry, even enhance those skills because it works. It's proven to work with them. It reverses the symptoms. It slows it down. So I pull a lot of that stuff from my work with the Parkinson's.
Where'd you get some of the? Because like when you mentioned, the stacking the pennies, I've never heard of that before. So like, where did you get some of these principles and ideas? Did you learn from someone, or how'd you come about it?
A lot of it is it just takes a lot of creativity. Like fine motor skills are using like your fingers. Like okay, so how can we translate that into an exercise? So a lot of it is like, what does the research show? Well, they don't really go into detail of what they're actually doing, but they go into detail of what the symptoms are. The reduce. Okay, so let's stack pennies. Let's see if that works. Okay, that did it. Sometimes I'll suspend a 10-pound weight from some bands with a loop in it, and I'll just have them poke a PVC pipe through it, right, from a lunge, and I'll move that weight back and forth. So they got to time it. It's focus. They're moving. Their heart rate's up. It's just little things like that. It just takes a little creativity to kind of. Yeah. Once you have the basic understanding of what's going on in the brain, then you can kind of get creative with it.
For the push-up, we have Mark Bell slingshot. Is there anything similar to that for the pull-up?
I wouldn't use. I don't really use bands for pull-ups. And I explained this in the video that in the YouTube videos we shot today. Is the reason why I don't like using bands for assistance in the pull-ups is because the initial movement to do a proper pull-up is scapular retraction. Pull the shoulder blades back, pull them down in your back pockets. The bounce at the bottom of the banded pull-up eliminates the strength requirement of pulling back and down because you bounce out of it. So you don't recruit the rhomboids and you don't pull the shoulder blades down. People rely too much on the bounce to get that. So they're really training the top half of the pull-up with the bands, and then they take the bands away and they're still struggling from a proper dead hang pull-up in initiating that first movement. So I progress them through either negatives, working from the top down to the bottom, and we just do scap pulls. We work on the dead hang. If you can't hang on the bar, you're not pulling yourself up anyway. So if you don't have the strength to really get a good grip on the bar, activate the lats by breaking that bar in half, pulling your shoulders back and down, then there's no way you're going to do a pull-up anyway. A band's not going to make you better.
Have someone hang for 30 seconds at a time for a little while or something like that?
Exactly. Yeah. A band might make you feel good because you're doing reps, but are you really doing reps? Or is that band really, you're bouncing out at the bottom of that pull-up? So
yeah. How about some like accessories then? If you are just terrible.
Hollow body holds. A pull-up you're using your whole kinetic chain. So any accessory you do should incorporate the whole posterior chain. It should incorporate the whole, bringing force from that bar down your whole chain unbroken. So if you're doing accessory work, like I don't like doing lat pull downs to accessorize pull-ups because there's a certain weight where you're pulling down where your hip flexors, the barrier, right? That's not natural to pull-ups. You're not holding a 90-degree hip flexion while pulling up. So it transfers a little bit, but not as much as doing like a hollow body hold and progressing from the ground up, like setting the bar lower and starting on your bottom, lifting your hips up and pulling up like that. So I like to do the movement. The accessory movement should be specific to the movement that you're doing, and lat pull downs aren't as specific enough to replicate a pull up.
How about like a fat guy row? You ever do those? Like where you lay on your back and you set the bar in the rack and you pull yourself to the bar?
Oh, is that what they're called?
Yeah, that's what I call them.
We were doing that. I think we were doing those earlier today. I didn't have a name for it. I just found it to be ineffective. But basically,
they're hard. Yeah.
You're on your back and you slide, right? You're like, okay, yeah, definitely. Now to make that even challenging, put yourself in that hollow body hold, then pull yourself to the bar. Like that should be the proper way to do that.
Yeah, we do those from time to time, and it's weird because you just die on them out of nowhere. Like at first they're not that bad, and you're like, oh, these aren't that bad,
right?
And then all of a sudden your strength starts to go. We sometimes we'll put our feet up on a box. We're laying on our back and we're just pulling on the bar.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's a good movement.
Excellent.
Lights your lats on fire.
It does. Yeah,
feels great.
Yeah, you're doing it right.
Yeah, heck yeah. Well, how did you hook up with this guy right here, David?
David Skolnick. Yeah, he's a colleague of mine. He used to work with me at the gym in Portland, Evolution, and we did a couple workshops together. He's a physical therapist working out of Santa Rosa now. Really knowledgeable. Started his own thing in Santa Rosa, Stronger in Motion. So yeah, he's we did a lot of workshops and seminars together. We got one planned for later this year. So he's kind of like collab on a lot of things. So
that's exciting.
Good dude too.
Yeah, he trains out there at how do you say it? San.
I
always say.
Nam San.
I always say it wrong.
Nam San? Is it San?
Yeah, that gym is wild.
Yeah, that's how I do it. Yeah, he's up there with Nick Pig.
Yeah, that gym is freaking crazy. Have you ever seen that gym before?
Which gym?
Saiyan Strength?
Saiyan? No, I have not. I've been there. I have been there. They got the Goku. Okay, they have the Dragon Ball
Yeah,
floors.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that place. It's pretty
That
cool.
place has like
Yeah.
every piece of equipment that you could
Yes.
possibly jam into a place.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a chance to train with David Goggins or communicate with him at all?
David and I, so it's a funny story. So when I was in the Navy, I was temporarily assigned to the Navy SEAL and SWIC scout team, and basically responsible for being mental conditioning coaches and like physical training coaches for like teams that would come in for these like boot camps, right? These little sessions. And David, back when I was there, we crossed paths briefly. He was the LCPO at the time, and I was just there, kind of under him. And we would go on runs every once in a while. He's a good guy, beast of a man. Really, he's really something else. He's an animal. So yeah, definitely he set the bar for me to do the pull-up record. So all the respect in the world to David. And again, like I appreciate anyone who's willing to put themselves out there and set the bar, because that takes a lot of courage to do that, especially being a guy like David's size and my size, to do that and just take on the challenge. So yeah.
You have your eyes set on any other type of world records or any trying to break your own pull-up record or something like that?
No, I'm kind of, honestly, like records will be broken. People who broke records will be forgotten. And for me, it's more about the why I did it. I want people to remember the legacy I leave behind, the inspiration. I really don't care about the records too much. I don't care, I encourage anyone to come and try to beat the record. I will help anyone that wants to beat the record. I think it's a great thing for people to get after it, push themselves. But for me, it's not a personal goal to just keep one-upping the same record. I want to move on and do other things. I want to do some things in the water. I want to do some things in the cold. I want to do some things when I'm older. I want to kind of get rid of the stigma that if you're a certain age, you got to stop being active. So a lot of things on the horizon that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, the stuff in the cold is pretty crazy. You ever see like the stuff that Wim Hof does?
Yeah, Wim Hof is another
My God.
very special guy. Yeah.
They've done tests on him, and he's is changing the temperature of the water that he's in, things like that. It's
You look at the water he's drinking.
yeah, yeah, that's true too. Right? What has anybody ever run any tests on you while you're doing some of these different things to kind of see, what the hell is this guy made out of?
Recently I've gotten some requests from some universities to do some tests, but initially when I first started this, I was kind of no one really knew. I had doctors that quit being my doctor.
Oh, they didn't want to. They didn't want to be a part of it.
They didn't want to be a part of it. They say that's humanly impossible. Your body cannot. Your heart will explode. Basically, like truck pull, your heart's gonna explode. Pull-ups, no, you can't. You're not. Your tendons are gonna rip off of your bone. You're too big to be able to do that many pull-ups. I'm not signing off on this. I was still in the military. Went to an exercise physiologist. They gave me the science on why, basically the science of why I'm going to fail at this thing. And I'm like, thank you. Men's Health magazine did an article, and they said reasons why this was going to be hard and challenging and almost impossible. Most of the talking points are how it's almost impossible, but it's not. It never is. And yeah, I just kind of if anyone wants to do some tests on me, they're more than welcome to. There's not much I wouldn't do for science. I'm a big science nerd, but we'll see.
You get an opportunity to do seminars, things like that too?
I do seminars. Yeah, I talk to a lot of college athletes. Basically, I do it's the corporate side too, the team building stuff we were talking about. Because a lot of these things I think are applicable, especially on the mindset side of just kind of working with the team and being able to kind of cut the fat and really focus on what matters the most, whether it's job productivity, marketing, just working together as a team, leadership, things like that. I do a lot of talks and seminars on that type of stuff.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
You work with any fighters that are in the UFC?
No, not currently. I work with a couple boxers, professional boxers.
And you used to box quite a bit yourself,
no,
right?
I wasn't a boxer.
No?
I wasn't a boxer.
The
strength and conditioning component of it, I've kind of taken on because I could just see it's applicable.
Oh, hit a bag for 30 seconds. You feel like you're gonna die.
It transfers, yeah. And I'm really focused on the mindset of it too. So I think that's 90% of it is just the mindset of being able to keep going and train. So a lot of fighters, especially, more than most athletes they carry a lot of luggage, a lot of baggage into these training camps, a lot of personal stuff. And you might have a very talented, gifted fighter, but if they're struggling with some stuff that they think they have no control over, that's going to reflect itself in their performance. So we want to chip away at that and we want to do some things that are going to challenge them in a way they've never been challenged before.
What do you think comes first, being prepared or confidence?
I think that people confuse not being prepared and thinking they're not prepared. So you can think that you're not prepared. You know, you might have a lot of anxiety going into a lift or an event. Like you might think you're not, and that's natural. That's normal to feel that. You might think then you could not be prepared. And not being prepared is, you know, in your heart of hearts that you didn't put in the work. You skated off on those weekends when you should have been running. You should have been doing the conditioning. You didn't stick to your diet. You didn't train as hard as you know you should have been. You didn't stick to the plan. And that's not being prepared. And there's a difference between the two. Sometimes athletes might think they're not prepared, but they actually are. And that we can work with. Okay, let's break that down. Now, if they're really not prepared, it's a simple answer. It's like you didn't do the work. It's hard work, and you didn't want to do it for one reason or another. So, you know, there's not too much you can do if they just didn't prepare. So.
You're passionate about mental health, and we talked a little bit about suicide earlier. Do you really think you could help people, not end up committing suicide? Or do you think that some of the people that say, like, I was going to do that, but I chose not to, maybe just weren't going to do it anyway?
I think that talking about it helps. I think that it helps eliminate the stigma behind going through a hard time, especially, it's a vulnerability. And I think the more we talk about it, the more that stigma of like it being a weakness or it being something you should keep to yourself, the negative stigma around it is something that we need to chip away. And it happens locally. It happens in your circle of friends, in your family, in your community. You got to change the way you perceive it, the way we perceive people who are struggling, because there's not a single person on the planet who's not going through something in their mind, at some point in their life. So it's kind of like having that empathy for other people and just being there, being that anchor and being the one that runs in every single time. So I think there's a negative stigma around, suicide, depression, and things like that. So I think the more we talk about it, the more like I'm not afraid to be vulnerable. I'm not afraid to put my heart on my sleeve. I'm an emotional guy. Like during these labors, like I tear up all the time and talking about it. I'm very passionate about it. I don't care what people perceive me, because I want to be as real, as authentic as possible. I think that there's a stigma about showing that emotion and being able, you have to keep this wall up. Like, no, you don't. It takes a stronger person to show that side of you. It takes a stronger person to be vulnerable. I mean, if a guy can pull a truck across Death Valley and be on this podcast and tear up talking about it, I mean, that's got to say something. And that just shows passion and you really getting in touch with your purpose. And so I think if we can get the message out that, hey, it's okay. It's okay if you're going through stuff. It's just okay that you feel like you're in this dark place. We've all been there, and you can come out of it. I've been there. I came out of it, and I will be there for anyone who's going through it.
So mental health can be complicated, that's for sure.
Yeah. You mentioned that you had that depressive episode after you, or you had depression after you, your ACL and then your meniscus. Have you ever had to deal with anything like that since, or what is it that's kept you, I guess, from that feeling?
I think, well, injury wise, that's probably the worst injuries I've had was probably to my knees. I mean, I've had, when I did the 100-day run, I broke almost all the metatarsals in my feet. My lower shin, I had like 6 stress fractures in my right tib fib, and a couple in my left as well. Kidneys started shutting down, but you recover from those things. Yeah. Once it's done. But the ACL and the meniscus, that was the longest injury I had to go through. And if you can bounce back from one, you can bounce back from it all. It's just about the mindset, it's how you look at it. If I was in a wheelchair, I would see it as an opportunity another vehicle for me to, like literally a vehicle for me to inspire other people. There's nothing that could happen to me as long as I have a pulse in my vein and a breath. I know that it's an opportunity for me to still inspire people some way. It's not the end of the world. And I think that's the biggest lesson that these labors have taught me is like, there's nothing, like you could take away my arms, you could take away my legs, just keep my brain, my lungs, my heart. I'll push you to do better. I can do it. Like I'll find a way.
What are some ways do you think can help some of these people in the military that have had PTSD and things like that? Talking about it, I guess, is one way. I guess raising awareness like you're doing, would be another way. But do you think like the military, do you think that there's it seems like there's more awareness about it now. Seems like they're maybe doing a better job of it. But you being in the military previously, do you think there's some other things they could do better?
I think that, the system, the government, there's things that can always be improved upon. No system, there's no perfect system. There's always going to be areas for improvement. But I think the focus shouldn't be on the system. You got to start from inside. The focus should be on, well, who am I being? Like, how can I improve myself even 1%? I have this big, thick wall of armor that's holding me down. How can I chip away one chunk away from this armor today? What is it that I keep telling myself today? What is it I'm not worthy? Well, why? What is the evidence in your environment that shows that you're not worthy? Who's telling you that? And what makes their opinion of you that valid? Like, what justifies that? And if the answer, if you really think about those things and the answer, like, why should I keep going? Why shouldn't I? Like, these are questions you have to ask. And you'll see if you're really honest with yourself, and you'll see that, there's actually a lot of people who really give a crap about you. There's a lot of people who want you to succeed. There's a lot of people who know what you're going through and have been there before and that are willing to talk about it. I'm willing to talk about it. And so I think that we could point our fingers at the government. We could point our fingers at the systems. We can point our fingers, but you know what? I come from a place where it's like, and this is me personally. I can't speak for every vet. I can't speak for everyone, but I came to a place where I got sick and tired of pointing my finger. Like I turned my excuses into reasons. Because I'm going through this hard time, therefore I will come back stronger. Because I'm heavier than most, I'm going to do 5,804 pull-ups. I don't care what the doctor says. All these excuses that I had to point my finger at, I turn them into reasons to succeed. And it's a hard thing to do, but once you do it, once you start making things into reasons and doing things in spite of what most people say is wrong with you, average people, most is average, most people will tell you, no wonder why you're messed up. Oh, you went through A, B, and C, and D? Yeah, you're screwed up, man. You need to get some meds. Most people will say that. Average people will say that. But if you want to be extraordinary, you want to be outstanding, if you want to be, if you want to break that stigma, you got to start thinking, no, I'm not most people, though. I'm not most. I'm different. All right? And that comes from turning your excuses into reasons. Life will break you down 6 ways to Sunday. All you got to do is find the one reason that it won't take you down. And it's a hard thing to do, but it takes a lot of soul searching and it takes talking about it. So if anyone out there is going through anything, I'm sure you can put my contact information up there. Reach out to me. I'll talk to you about it if no one else.
I like what you're saying a lot because I think a lot of times when somebody does have mental health issues, I think that they are thinking about medication. I think they are thinking about a doctor stepping in, the government stepping in, and everyone else stepping in. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, but you might have to step in on yourself, Like, hopefully you got people around you that are going to support you because we all need that. If someone's really low and someone's really down, it's going to be hard for them to get momentum, right? But hopefully there's enough encouragement around to just get you that little boost of momentum. But you're going to have to figure out something for yourself.
Exactly.
You can't really you can't cheer for yourself if you think you're a loser. You have to. There has to be an accomplishment. There has to be something that you did where you're like, okay, well, I did that. I got up off the couch. I went to the gym today, or whatever that small step would be. You did something. Now you got something to be proud of. Now you can kind of get behind it. You can get behind yourself. You can start cheering for yourself, and you can start getting that momentum that we're talking about.
Little victories. The value of little victories. Yeah.
Cool. Got anything else, Andrew?
What do you want to be remembered for? Now, I'm not saying you're not going anywhere, but like you came in today and we instantly hit you with pull-up tips, pull-up videos, pull-up mistakes, pull up this, pull up that. Do you want to be labeled as the pull-up guy or something bigger?
You know what? Like I said, the physical stuff is it's the vehicle for my message. And, I think great people, they're not remembered. People who we look in history that we say, okay, they're immortalized. It's not because of what they did defied death. It's because the things they did, right, are remembered forever. It's the things, it's the deeds. So honestly, people can forget me, my face, my name, the records, whatever. But I hope they remember that at one point there was a guy who refused to be defined by limits, who wasn't afraid to step outside the box, and challenge himself, get after it. And these are principles, these are values, these are virtues that have stood the test of time. Discipline, courage, bravery, being willing to push yourself. And they're cliche today, but there's a reason why they're cliche today, because they've been around for thousands of years, not going anywhere. They're strong principles, they're strong virtues, and we're losing sight of that today. In a world where, that's flooded by mediocrity, and people are drowning out their uniqueness. They want to blend in with everybody else. It's too common today. So I think we need to, remember me for someone who just wanted to get back to those core virtues, those core values of just kind of, not making excuses and knowing that everyone has a potential to be great at something, right? And that's it. That's all I could ask for.
This guy's a quote machine. This is awesome.
Got them all in his head. Yeah. Where can people find you, and how in the world can someone catch a workout with you?
You can find me in Portland, Oregon. Evolution Healthcare and Fitness is where I'm at most of my time. I do a corporate fitness class for Amazon out there too. You talk about the corporate, what I do for them. I do a lot of body weight, like mobility stuff. They're on their computer like this all day, open up their thoracic. So you want to catch a workout with me, if you're in the Portland area, just reach me on Instagram at Mike McCastle. I have a website, 12laborsproject.com. If you want to look at some of the crazy things I do, all this stuff's on there. And then my email is michael@12laborsproject.com.
Cool, man. Awesome having you here. I love the cause. I love a lot of the things you said. Really vibed with me really well, and I'm sure our audience will appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later.